The old house loomed, a spooky silhouette against the moon. Dead leaves crunched under their feet. Wind howled like a hungry wolf. "Dare you to go in," Mark said, grinning. "Double dare," added Josh. Jenny shivered. "It looks haunted." Sarah laughed, but her voice trembled. "Let's do it. They were best friends, always up for a challenge, especially on Halloween night." But this time a shiver of real fear ran down their spines. They were about to enter Blackwood Manor, a place whispered to be cursed. The iron gate creaked open with a groan. Each step toward the house felt heavier than the last. "Ready?" Sarah asked, her smile strained. No one answered. They were already prisoners of their own fear. The front door swung open with a gust of icy wind. Dust swirled in the air, thick with the smell of decay. Cobwebs hung like ghostly curtains. "Hello!" Sarah called out, her voice echoing in the silence. Only the creaking of the house answered. Each creak sounded like a whisper, warning them to turn back. Mark pulled out his phone, the screen a pale light in the darkness. No signal. They ventured deeper into the house, shadows clinging to them like cobwebs. Every room was filled with antique furniture draped in dusty sheets. Jenny felt a cold spot and pulled her jacket tighter. "I don't like this," she whispered. "Don't be such a scaredy cat," Josh said, but his voice lacked confidence. They climbed the grand staircase, the steps groaning under their weight. Portraits of stern-faced strangers lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow the intruders. The attic door was hidden behind a tattered tapestry. Dust rained down as Mark pushed it open. The air was stale and heavy, filled with the musty scent of forgotten things. A single window cast a pale light on the jumble of furniture and boxes. A broken rocking horse stood in the corner, its glassy eyes staring accusingly. Sarah brushed cobwebs aside and picked up a dusty doll. Its porcelain face was cracked, a sinister smile etched on its lips. "Creepy," she muttered, placing it back on the shelf. Josh rummaged through a trunk, pulling out a tarnished silver hand mirror. "Look at this." The mirror was ornate, with a silver frame etched with strange symbols. It felt cold to the touch, sending a shiver down Josh's spine. "Don't touch that!" Jenny cried, but it was too late. Josh held the mirror up, catching Sarah's reflection. But something was wrong. Instead of Sarah's smiling face, the mirror showed a shadowy figure standing behind her. "What the—" Josh started to say, but the words caught in his throat. The figure in the mirror lunged. It was tall and skeletal, with long, claw-like fingers reaching out from the glass. Sarah screamed, the sound swallowed by the dusty silence of the attic. She stumbled backward, her eyes wide with terror. The mirror fell from Josh's grasp, clattering to the floor. When they looked again, both the figure and Sarah were gone. "Sarah?" Jenny's voice shook. "Where did she go?" They searched the attic, frantically tossing aside boxes and furniture. But there was no sign of Sarah. She had vanished without a trace. Section 5. Vanished! Panic clawed at their throats. They raced down the stairs, calling Sarah's name, their voices echoing in the empty house. "This isn't funny, Sarah!" Mark yelled, his voice cracking, but there was no answer, only the sound of their own pounding hearts. They searched every room, every nook and cranny. They checked behind doors, under beds, even in closets. Sarah was gone. The house seemed to press in on them, the silence deafening. The air grew colder, a bone-chilling cold that seemed to seep into their very bones. "We have to get out of here," Jenny whispered, her face pale. "But what about Sarah?" Josh asked, his voice filled with despair. "We'll call for help," Mark said, pulling out his phone, but the screen remained blank. No signal. They were trapped. Section 6. Whispers in the Dark. Night fell, casting the house in an eerie gloom. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist, taking on menacing shapes. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls, too faint to make out, yet filled with malice. "Did you hear that?" Jenny huddled closer to Mark, her eyes wide with fear. "Hear what?" Josh's voice was tight with tension. Whispering, Jenny whispered back, her voice trembling, like someone's watching us. Mark strained his ears, but he only heard the creaking of the old house. "It's just the wind," he said, trying to sound reassuring. But even he felt a shiver crawl down his spine. The whispers grew louder, circling them like vultures. They couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, filled with sorrow, anger, and an icy despair that chilled them to the bone. The house was alive, and it was hungry. They stumbled upon a hidden room behind a bookcase, its walls covered in faded photographs and yellowed letters. As they examined the dusty artifacts, a horrifying truth began to dawn. The people in the photos, their faces frozen in time, all had the same haunted look in their eyes. They were all young, all full of life, yet their smiles seemed strained. Their eyes filled with a deep, unsettling sadness. The letters told stories of disappearances, of strange occurrences, of a darkness that clung to the house and those who dared to enter. They spoke of a mirror, a gateway to another realm, and souls trapped within its shimmering depths. This house, it traps people, Jenny breathed, her voice barely a whisper. They were not the first to be lured into this nightmare, and they were unlikely to be the last. Desperation clawed at them. They had to escape this house of shadows before they too became permanent residents. The front door was locked, bolted from the inside. Windows wouldn't budge, nailed shut. Panic rose like bile in their throats. "We're trapped," Josh cried, pounding on the walls in frustration. "There has to be another way out," Mark insisted, his voice tight with fear. They raced from room to room, their footsteps echoing in the silence, but every door was locked, every window sealed. The house held them captive, toying with them like a predator with its prey. The air grew heavy, thick with despair. Hope flickered and threatened to die. Back in the attic, they found themselves drawn to the spot where Sarah had vanished. The broken mirror lay on the floor, its silver frame tarnished, its surface reflecting nothing but darkness. "The mirror," Jenny whispered, her voice filled with dread. It took her. They were out of options, out of time. The whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a vortex of despair. The house wanted them, their fear fueling its dark power. "We have to try," Mark said, his voice desperate. They gathered around the broken mirror, its jagged edges reflecting their fear-stricken faces. The whispers intensified, urging them closer, promising oblivion. "Sarah!" Jenny called out, her voice thin and reedy. "Are you there?" For a moment there was silence, then a faint whisper, barely audible, yet unmistakable. "Help me?" Mark reached out, his hand disappearing into the mirror's reflective surface. A cold, tingling sensation shot up his arm, followed by an overwhelming sense of dread. "Don't!" Jenny cried, grabbing his arm, but it was too late. The mirror pulsed with a sudden, blinding light. Mark screamed, his voice echoing through the house, then abruptly cut short. When the light faded, he was gone. The mirror lay shattered on the floor, its magic spent. Jenny and Josh were alone, trapped in the house with the whispers of the lost, their own reflections staring back at them from the broken shards of the mirror. The house had claimed them, just like it had claimed countless others before. They were now part of its dark history, their laughter and screams echoing through the empty halls for all eternity. The house was no longer silent. It was filled with the whispers of the trapped, a chorus of despair that would haunt them forever.